Hey everyone, it's Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review here for the first of two movies. It's kind of a duology of anthology films that I had heard about in the past. I don't really know if I heard good or bad, just kind of knew about them, right? And they were on Shudder, the streaming app, and I went ahead and watched them on there. I think they're exclusively through Shudder, that you can only watch it through them. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Anyway, the first film here out of the duology is called Scare Package. It came out in 2019. It's about an hour and 50 minutes long. Good God, I felt every minute of that. Let me tell you really quick, I wasn't a fan of this movie. I thought it was trying so hard to be a funny homage to horror, to things like Blockbuster, to everything, and it mainly focused on stories as an anthology that were slasher focused most of the time. Not always, but most of the time that kind of creature feature, ultra gory slasher tale type of thing. And I really loved the wraparound, but the short stories themselves, I didn't really like at all, if I'm being honest with you. They have certain jokes and whatever that made me laugh, because this isn't just a horror comedy or a horror movie with anthological parts to it. It's not just a short story retelling or anything like that. It actually is a comedy more than a horror story. It's not really scary by any means, and not that it has to be. I had a good time with certain jokes, with certain moments in the film, but out of an hour and 50-minute runtime, it just dragged for me, man. I feel like, again, it tried too hard most of the time. I'm trying to slowly delete a lot of it from my brain, but let me say this. If you were like myself and you didn't like this first film, try Scare Package 2, Rad Chad's Revenge, because it was excellent. I loved it. I watched it last night, about an hour or so after I watched this first film, just to say, hey, I've seen those movies. And I gotta tell you, Part 2 is also an anthology film, and it's way better. Way better. But I'll get to that when I review it in a moment, if I record it today. But anyway, Scare Package from 2019, the original movie that I'm talking about here, is basically the wraparound focus I really want to put some time to talk about. It's basically about a guy who is named Rad Chad. He owns this horror emporium DVD rental store called Rad Chad's. And he gets a new employee, and one of the guys that he's friends with that kind of really wants this job but can't ever get it, gets kind of jealous and tries to sabotage the new employee by, breaking the rules around the building and whatever. Now, the three of them, mainly Rad Chad and the guy who looks like Matt Walsh, that wants to work for the place and can't get the job. These two keep telling this new employee all these different things about these different movies they've seen that they really enjoy, that are kind of horror classics. And then you watch the short films they talk about. Or you might have like a screen in the corner of the room in the background that you might zoom into and start playing, the new short story for the audience to watch. And like I said, this wraparound story that was focused in between each little segment of the film about this new employee, about Rad Chad's horror emporium store, I loved that. I thought they were genuinely fun. I thought they were super funny. Rad Chad himself, the actor playing him, is really good in that role. He's genuinely a funny guy. I really like the lines they gave him. I kind of went into this expecting him to be like a producer, a director, whatever for this. He wasn't. And that really surprised me because of how good he fit this role. It was so good and fit like a glove that I felt like he wrote this role for himself. He didn't write it. It kind of surprised me quite a bit, if I'm being honest with you. But this actor was really good. He was the best part of the film. There were certain lines that he delivered in this wraparound story that I will be quoting the rest of my life, like when he calls the new employee his little Pikachu. Yes. It made me laugh a lot. I really had some good laughs with this film. But again, that was like 10% of the time. Most of the film, being a lower budget horror project, feels very cheap. And the only real things that kind of stand out for me are like the practical effects in the film. The practical effects and the makeup effects look really good. They're supposed to gross you out. They're supposed to be absolutely disgusting, and that is what it is. You have a beautiful poster for the film too, like you probably saw in my thumbnail. It's great. I really like all of that. But the directing style, all of that, feels cheap because this is a low-budget indie project, and it is kind of garbage, if I'm being honest with you. Most of the time, I don't like the film. Most of the time as I watched this, I was dozing because it was just so dull, and again, such a try-hard film most of the time, and it's surprising to me to see a lot of the same people, mainly the creator and whatever of Scare Package, involved in Scare Package 2, which is rated way lower and liked way less than Part 1 on the internet. And I love that one. I thought it was way better, like a billion times better than this movie. With all that being said, though, this is not a massive loss. If you put some time into watching Scare Package, you might have some more moments, and you might like it more than I did, because it seems like a lot of people really, really dig this movie. Horror fans, mainly. If you're not a horror fan, it's probably not going to be for you, but the rest of us, I think, really had some moments we enjoy, or, like a lot of people, really, really like most of the film. The segments, like I said, are kind of forgettable. The more I went about my next day after I watched this, I'm forgetting more and more things that just really didn't matter to me. There was one particular segment that involves the woods and a guy who comes up to a bunch of campers. It's one of the first segments in the film, and tells them he's a monster and he's about to transform. And that little segment was probably 20 minutes long, and I actually really liked it. I thought it was probably one of the better ones in the entire film. But again, it felt try-hard, just like everything else. And it just, I don't know. It feels like a bigger loss than it was a gain for me as an audience member. And if this had come out in theaters and years later we had Scare Package 2, I don't know if I would have went to see it. But now that I had both back-to-back, I recommend watching them back-to-back, because you kind of need to for Scare Package 2 to work as well as it does. And I hope they make a third one. They're kind of hinting at the end of 2 they'll make a third, so I would love to have a trilogy of Scare Package films. The newest film just came out last year in 2022, so it's very possible that could happen. But all that being said, it's not the strongest movie ever. It's not the poorest movie I've ever seen, but it's kind of just cheap and try hard. That's the biggest 2 traits about the film that I don't like at all about it. The acting, these poor actors are trying their best to do what they can with what they were given. And again, the real standout here is Rad Chad. He's excellent. I loved him. But outside of that, it's kind of a mess. There is some CGI blood in here, but I understand with a project like this, most of it, like 95% of it, are practical effects and makeup, and they look fantastic, even though they're poorly used, in my personal opinion. Anyway, with all that being said, I forgot to mention this part too. It's a very 1980s throwback type of film. I think it takes place in the 90s for the wraparound story. I could be wrong. Maybe it's modern day. But it has an 80s flair to it. A 1980s synthwave soundtrack, which was really good. I really like that. I like that 80s tone that it's trying to go for. But it's also a very random, very like The Simpsons, Family Guy type of flair to it too. If you like that kind of thing, I think you'll like this more. But if you don't, I don't think you will. Even though I'm a fan of those things, it didn't really connect for me most of the time. Anyway, when it comes to Scare Package from 2019, have you seen it? What do you think about it? I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments down in the comment section down below. And again, I'm going to try to review Scare Package 2 immediately after this video, so tune in for that if you want. If I had to rate Scare Package on a 5-star basis, again, there's a couple of things I really like in here, like that music and whatever, but it just doesn't land. It's a bad movie. It's a really bad movie, and I feel bad about saying that. But again, I promise you, if you sit through this and you want to try Scare Package 2, Scare Package 2, especially if you're a Saw fan, is way better. Way better, in my opinion. But this film having an overemphasis focus on slasher was just so dull. You know, you could have parodied a lot of things in this film, but it's mainly slasher stuff. And again, the references focused on so many different horror projects that you've seen, even down to like the car at the end of the original Nightmare on Elm Street are in this movie. Like, that stuff was really cool. I really loved it. It made me smile. But yet it didn't connect to the overall project the way I think Scare Package 2 does, like I said. Anyway, tune in for that. I'd love to hear what you have to say. But if I had to rate this film on a 5-star basis, I can't give it more than 2 out of 5 stars. I think it's just... it's really underneath average for me. But anyway, with that being said, what did you think about it? I'd love to hear what you have to say about Scare Package. Thank you all for watching. God bless you all, and have a good week. Of course, this is Monday, so I hope you enjoy your day. And, yeah. God bless you guys. Goodbye.